Right, welcome again to yet another Whiskey Circus. Today we've got two of India's finest coming to talk to us. One's here to talk about whiskey, the other one's here to talk about the latest phenomenon on Instagram. But we've basically got today, so we've got Shilton from Paul John. I think everybody knows Shilton, so there's no need for me to introduce him. And we've got Craig, who joined 2 years ago, I believe. Is it 2 years now?
Yeah, it's about 2 years.
Yeah, so he's kind of the brand ambassador as well for Paul John, and he's more or less the face we'll see at most of the festivals. It's not quite as pretty as Shilton's, but they've decided to push the whiskey rather than the people now. So, but what I'll do is I'll hand over to Shilton first and let him introduce himself, give us a little bit of background into Paul John whiskey, and then we'll go into the questions and see how that goes. So over to you, Shilton.
Hi, everyone. You got me wrong there. This is Amitabh Bachchan from Bollywood here. It's not Shilton, so don't listen to someone. Hi, I'm Shilton Almeida. I am from Goa. Born and brought up in Goa. I've been working with Paul John from 2012. As in, I was looking after the Goa market till 2015, and I moved to Europe, to the UK, and looking after the UK market first. And now I look after the Northern European markets for the brand. Pretty much how I got into the industry is I started in 2006, my first adventure, working in the Middle East in a duty-free shop selling whiskey. It's one place none of us want to work because you're selling the best of the whiskeys, but you cannot try any of them. So it's been 5 years just selling the whiskey, but you're reading about it, but you do not know if it's actually true. So just talking about the whiskey until 2012 when I joined the distillery in Goa. And that's when looking at the making of it, and you say, well, that's how it is made. I read about it, if I can finally see it. But yeah, I moved to Europe, and now is a point where I make sure I try all the whiskeys which I have been selling at that time. That's pretty much about me. I'll let Craig introduce himself as well.
So a lot of you guys already know me. So I got introduced to Shilton through Soren probably 3-4 years ago now. So yeah, me and Soren used to do some freelance work with Shilton for the Paul John stuff, and the opportunity came across that I could actually join the guys full time, which it took. My background's very mixed, so my family's been involved in whiskey all of my life because my uncles used to work for the Dewars bottling plant up in Scotland. But by trade, I've worked heavy industry, done a little bit of brand ambassador stuff for some coffee chains. When I had the opportunity to join Paul John, I leapt at the chance. Who wouldn't want to drink and talk and sell whiskey all day? So that was it. That's pretty much me. I look after the whole UK market, help Shilton out wherever possible with regards anything else for Europe. But that's pretty much me. Anybody that wants anything regards Paul John in the UK normally comes to me. So I'll be the person you see at festivals, tastings, sampling sessions, basically drive the full length and breadth of the UK doing what I do. So anyone needs any information with regards service stations, hotels, takeaway joints, I can pretty much give you the best ones for the area. That's about it.
Craig, that sounds so dodgy. I'm sorry.
Life of a rep.
Yeah, that just sounded so dodgy that you know all the car parks and service stations and hotels in the country.
I do.
You know, just so anybody that is watching it, this is purely about whiskey. You know, we're not doing any dodgy dealings. But what I want to try and get into then, so going back to Shilton, that obviously it's an Indian brand that's now very well talked about, very well appreciated. But how hard was it bringing that Indian brand into the UK or into Europe even?
So we launched the brand in 2012 in the UK first, even before launching it in India. And 2013, the next year, it was launched in Goa and then to the other states. Launching it first, we came out with a single cask we released, and soon after we released the flagships, that is Brilliance Edited and Bold. Brilliance and Edited, actually. It was pretty different. It's Mr. Paul P. John, the owner of the company, who started set up the distillery in 2008. Just because of pure passion. He loved his single malts, and he said he was in the industry. He's been in the industry from '92 in India. I thought, why don't I make single malts as well when I've got the ingredients in it? So very passionate guy, and that's how he came up with the single malts. But before that, Amrut was there in 2004. So it was different. For example, when I came over here in 2015, the brand was out. I knew about 25 stores across UK that was selling Paul John. And today, if you look at it, we have 200 plus stores which are selling Paul John across the UK in this time. It's changed a lot from someone coming to you and saying, well, I never knew India made any single malt. I never knew there is whiskey coming from India. From there, 2015, which I came across first. And today you come across people saying, well, I have all your whiskeys with me at home. Is there something new? You know, so it has changed a lot. People are aware, or maybe they know about it. Someone gifted a bottle to them, or they bought a bottle of Paul John. So it has changed a lot, and it is changing. Even back home in India, the market has changed a lot for us as well.
I mean, you know, that's one thing I certainly noticed, that when you gave me the opportunity to work on the stand, that how many people back then sort of came up and sort of, they tried it and then said, do you know, I didn't realize India made whiskey. And then it was like, and I didn't think it would taste this good. And that's kind of what made me laugh, that, you know, people just assume because it's from another country other than Scotland that whiskey just can't taste good. But, you know, as you see in the sales, it's speaking for themselves in a sense.
Yeah.
And
it is. Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot, guys. I mean, from where it was 2015 when I came over there for the first time, it was pretty new as a country for me. It was a different culture, and me walking in a store with the Indian whiskey was the biggest challenge. With a suitcase full of whiskey, just going into every store and a bar and talking about Indian whiskey was pretty different. Compared to now, where you can see a lot of bars already have it, and all we do, me and Craig do, is just introduce ourselves and provide the support to them. So it has changed from that point to here is a big difference. It also helps us in a way in the Indian market as well. The Indian market today is much bigger than our global market. It's a big whiskey market in general, but our sales have increased a lot, mainly also because of the international markets. I mean, the brand known over here, it shows back in India as well of the brand being recognized back home.
That's one thing I was going to ask, that obviously India has an absolutely massive whiskey market. How, I know from talking to you the year or two back, I think a year before the last time we saw each other, that obviously Paul John wasn't really in the Indian market so much at that point, but you were going into the Indian market. Are you now well into the Indian market? And how does that Indian market go? Because I know you obviously told us the story with the little Tetra Packs and things like that, but you know, what is the Indian market like at the moment?
Well, it has changed a lot for us as a brand itself. There is a big the biggest challenge for us, which I've always seen in that market, is people always go for imported Scotch whiskey. That's the first thing they will want to go. When you say single malt, is it imported? Is it a Scotch? If not, I don't want to drink a local whiskey. But that's how the trend has been for a long time. It's also because of the pricing. Another challenge we face is there is the taxes in every state. Every state in India has got its own tax structure. So moving from Goa to the other state, it will double up the prices because of that. And people will say, well, it's a Indian local brand, but the pricing are higher. I don't want to buy that. I might as buy an imported Scotch whiskey. blended Scotch whiskey for the same price or cheaper. So that's what has been. But now the market has changed big time. For example, Nirvana has picked up. Nirvana sells double what we sell across the world. I mean, if you put it India, we sell about 14,000 cases a year compared to 7,000 to 8,000 internationally. That's also because of the pricing on Nirvana, which is less in India. So that's an entry-level whiskey. That works well. Plus, we have a big team in India which are working behind the brand. They're running around doing tastings and stuff. So the brand has picked up and is doing really well. The sales, it's one of the biggest market in the world today, and if that picks up, believe me, there won't be enough liquid to export. That's how the market is.
Yeah. And what is the capacity of the distillery at the moment?
So we have a capacity of 6,000 liters a day, producing liters a day. That's we do about 1.2 million a year. At the same time, we have about 17,000 casks maturing at the same time, which should be by end of this year it should be 20,000 casks at the distillery that we have. So we have the capacity, but again, it's just because we can't leave the whiskey in the cask, and which I'm sure we'll get to that point today. But we can't leave the whiskey in the cask for a long time. We have to bottle it. But if the sales are not happening, then we got plenty of liquid with us.
Yeah, and that, obviously now you've mentioned it, the fact of when people talk about whiskies, and especially Paul John, obviously all your products in theory are no age statements. But is that purely because we all know the whiskies are sort of that 5, 6, 7 years old, which really equates to probably double, maybe even triple the Scottish because of the way it's matured? Is it a conscious decision not to put an age statement on, or was it just that you felt it wasn't needed?
From the beginning, I would say Michael, our master distiller, and Paul always wanted to come up with a liquid which is good enough and not to go for the age. We are always transparent in talking about the ages. So we always tell people about the age, but we just don't mention on it, is because we want people to try the liquid and believe in the liquid first and not go with the age. So that's the main idea of doing with it. We all know that how the maturation is, how the quicker maturation works on the liquid that we have. Looking at 5 and 7 years old liquid with us, but then we get a lot of flavors coming out. So we wanted people to try it out first and see if they like it, and then tell them about the age. So that's a very different point of view that we came out with.
And obviously, from talking to yourself and Craig quite a lot, that I think, are you now bottling whiskies about 8 years old?
Yes, from 4 years, that's the entry level, to 8 years.
Yeah. And how far do you think you could push that age? Where do you think you would get to before the wood is too dominant in there?
I personally think every time we try, we should be about 7 to 8 is the max. 5 is the best time. I always found out any of the 5 and 6 is the point where you find the more fruity flavors, and you go up towards 7 and 8, the wood starts dominating a bit. Further, more than that should be more woodier, definitely. But it all depends. There are people who love that character. There are consumers in the market who like that woody character, coming out from the whiskey. But if you look at it in general, most of them, being Paul John, they will say, I like the fruity character. For example, doing single cask and sending samples across to different independent bottlers, they will, if you give them an aged spirit, they come back and say, Shilton, this is not how Paul John is. And if I do a bottling, they will say it's something different. So they prefer the fruity 5 and 6 years old whiskey, which I think is more of a signature style. Yeah,
I was going to say, because I know when I first got sort of talking to you and you introduced me to sort of Brilliance and the Select Cask, they were about that sort of 4 or 5 year old mark. They were so fruity, and just that one extra year, to me, it changed it dramatically. It went from being extremely fruity to kind of a more balanced, spicy, fruity flavor. And that surprised me quite a lot.
Yeah. If you look at the classic, for example, if you ever get a chance to see, if to get a bottle on the shelf, which is from batch 2013, and if you look at the latest batch, if you take it side by side, there's a little difference in both, because we used to use a 5 years old whiskey in the previous batch the first time we came out with, and today we use 7 and 8 years old liquid in it.
Yeah.
So there is a slight difference in it, but classic, I mean, the select cask is, if someone says, I want to try any one Paul John only, I will definitely go with the classic, and that, Saran, as well.
Yeah.
We always pour the classic to anybody who comes to.
No, I mean, I've always said that out of all the whiskies that I've tried, that Select Classic is probably the best quality for money ratio that, I mean, I've got it, it will always be on my whiskey shelf. That is the one bottle that I have continuously bought and bought and bought and bought. And, the one thing I was quite disappointed in with Craig, that he still maintains that the peated one is the better one. But, I'm sure one day he'll come to his senses with that one.
Look, I was like Shilton, anybody asks for that one expression to try, I will always recommend the classic. Just because I prefer the peated, I understand the classic is an amazing expression.
But I told you that from the beginning, Craig,
Yeah, if you get any peated into you nearly fall over.
It's the same thing with me. If someone comes to me and says, if I want to try one with one Paul John, which one do you prefer? I pour them the classic. Yeah. I want them to try the classic, but I will myself pour a bold.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, I think, with Paul John, that you've managed to bring, I mean, what have you got now? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you've kind of got 6 expressions, taking away the single cask and the new Pedro and Oloroso. So you've kind of got those 6 expressions, and they cover everything. And that's what I like about Paul John, that within 6 expressions, you've done everything.
Yeah. So another thing which I would like to add here is, whenever we started, we were pretty new to start off with. Even with the warehousing, which at some point we'll talk about it, we had 2 warehouses, and it was a new concept of coming out with a distillery in Goa. So we were risking everything in it. Michael said, let me try out 2 warehouses. One is an underground cellar and one above. So at least something will work out. In the same thing with the style of whiskies as well that we have, like the 6 whiskies, it will be very wrong to ask someone saying which is the favorite today, because they're all very different, from unpeated to peated, or something at 40%. So the whole idea was to give to offer a whiskey to every palate. If someone wants to have a big peated whiskey, there is a peated select cask. So if that's too strong, and someone there are markets which are more of this 40% easy drinking whiskey, for example, in Indian market. So we came out with a Nirvana for that. So just because of that, we had the 6 expressions plus the 2 new ones which are just out in the market.
And one thing that I've always liked, again, about the way you sell your whiskies, and I've seen this quite a few times on the stand, that somebody will come up and you not only pour that whiskey as a single malt whiskey, but you will also explain cocktails and ginger ale and things like that into them. And I think it was you, exactly. I think one of the simplest things that you showed me was the ginger ale into edited. Yeah. And it just made a fantastic, but the point all along was you drink it how you want and in any way you want.
I always tell this to people, and one of the things which you guys have heard as well, the moment I pour the whiskey in a glass, it's your whiskey. You can enjoy it the way you want it to. Or we can point you in the direction of this could be better in this way, but at the end of the day, it's your whiskey. A classic example is, I've just mentioned, we're selling double the amount of cases back in India with the Nirvana. Most of this whiskey is drunk in the highball or even with the Coke. But then again, it's they're still enjoying the whiskey, and it's also because of the climates. It's a hot country, and you can't be having. It happens to me as well every time I take a peated whiskey from here when I go down for a vacation. And if I sit it with my friends, I can't drink it because of the climate. I may be having just 1 dram, but it's too hot to have a peated whiskey in a hot and humid climate. So that's how people end up having a mixture in it. So it could be a water, soda water, or ice, or and that's how it is. You can't change it, and just can't change it overnight.
And so, talking of the climate, obviously we will talk about the warehousing. So you have underground and overground. Sounds more like a Wombles thing, that, doesn't it? So you've obviously got the underground and the warehousing above ground. How much differences are you noticing between the two different spirits once they've matured?
The liquid itself, there's some difference in it. The temperatures are 23 degrees underground versus 25 above. Not big, but the humidity makes a big difference, because the ones on above the ground are in direct interaction with the saltiness in the air. So most of the time, the liquid which you get from above are more robust, more minerally, more salty in character compared to the one which are underground from the underground warehouse. Classic, for example, is all from underground warehouse. Peated select cask is all from above the ground. So that's a difference in this two. But plus, even if you do a single cask sit with two single casks from different warehouses, there is a big difference in both as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I know one of the finest single casks that I've had from anywhere was your 1906. That was, as far as I'm aware, from below ground.
Yes.
And that was just, it's just so different from some of the other ones. And it's the best single cask that I've had for a long, long time.
Yeah, I've got one bottle of that, which I not kept it with me in London over here. I sent it back home because that's the only safest way to keep it away from me and not end up drinking it. So any of you guys see a bottle of it, please do let me know as well from the shelf. I would love to buy another.
Yeah, I'm not telling you where it is.
Yeah. I'm going to say Craig's got one apparently somewhere, but I think I'm down to my last two bottles, and I think I've had 7. So it's superb. But going back to the warehouses, then the other question is, with the warehousing below ground, are you noticing that because you're controlling the temperatures, can you take it to an older age, do you think? And are you seeing any less angel share from the underground?
Well, there is not much of a difference, especially with the angel share as well. It's Craig has been in the underground warehouse and underground cellar. It's still the same. It's still hot, but the only thing is it's not humid. There's no humidity in it, and that's the biggest difference. The liquid, all our the Oloroso PX or the future expressions coming in, which we experiment, are all underground. So that's where Michael keeps them, not above the ground, just because to be more careful on it and get most out of it.
And so these experiments, are we going to know any of them that are coming out? Any secrets you can divulge? Nobody will ever watch this video, so you can tell us everything.
No, we are working on, we have got some virgin oak, first of all. So virgin oaks, you'll find the next Christmas edition coming out this year, which is, Craig is...
Yeah, if Craig just talks, then he'll come on to the...
Yep, so this is the new Christmas edition. So those of you that actually got a chance to try the first one we did in 2018 with the Oloroso, so we're going sort of back to that one with the unpeated peated bourbon Oloroso, but then with the virgin oak cask in this one as well.
Yeah.
This little package here is what Shilton's waiting for, because this is Shilton samples of the new Christmas edition. So it is, for me personally, I loved the 2018 Oloroso one. I actually preferred last year's PX. It was very close, but I preferred last year's PX. This one, blow both of them out of the water for me. I think it's so much better than anything else that we've done with these experimental casks.
And that's the thing that obviously me and you know quite a bit about, Craig, because if we go back probably 3 years now, is it, with the Oloroso, the excitement that Paul John were going to bring out something other than the bourbon, where we all know that, you know, from when we've poured Paul John, and everybody always argued the fact that there must be some sherry in there because of those flavours, but it was always sort of first fill with a little bit of second fill, whereas now you've obviously started to bring out those sherry casks and things like that.
Yeah, so we had done the Oloroso single cask, which Soren, you and I think Craig has got a bottle or two of that as well. There were 252 bottles that we got from one cask, released globally and sold out. That was just to see how it works, and that's how we ended up buying more of Oloroso and PX. We also got some virgin oak as well with us, which we are working on, and that's going to be what's with the virgin oak is we have got the Christmas edition where we are trying it now. We're wetting it with an Oloroso peated, unpeated whiskey, so 4 different whiskeys together for the Christmas edition, and by January, February 2021, the next Zodiac release, that is after Kanya. So we had the Kanya first, and the next Zodiac series will be a virgin oak as well. So that's going to be all virgin oak used for the Zodiac release, the next one.
And do we know what age liquid that will be? Are you having to bring it out fairly young, or?
That will be 5 or 6 max, not more than that.
Yeah. So still a good age then for the maturation in India then.
Yeah, because I got a sample of the 4, and it was 4 years, 6 months old liquid virgin oak, which I got sometime back. That was straight away from the cask, and by now by the time we release, it's not more than 6. That's all. I can say. Between 5 and 6 for sure.
Yeah, and so it did intrigue me, because I think the last time I saw you was down in Bristol, and the one thing I remember you coming up to the table was asking, "Have I got anything on virgin oak?" And I'm thinking, they're bringing something out with virgin oak here.
Yeah, so that's that's what we are coming out with, and also the second thing what we are working on is we got some Madeira and port coming out as well. So that's also the cask are already there, the liquid is in there. I tried some when I was there, so that should be in released 2021.
Brilliant, yeah. And going back to like the Christmas editions, obviously, and the Zodiac, I think one thing that a lot of people missed with the Zodiac when you brought Kanya out, that I don't think many people realised that was going to be an ongoing limited edition. And, you know, obviously, those that kind of got hold of a Kanya and kept it aside can now complete a series, and a lot of other people are sort of like, damn, I didn't get it in time, sort of thing. Yeah,
so the idea of that was there are 12 Zodiac signs, and the idea of that is to come up with one every year. We're supposed to come with the second one this year, but it's delayed because of obvious reasons. But we're gonna come up with the next one. The Kanya is Virgo. There will be the other one, which we are still not decided on the name on it, but it will be out by January or February. But it's going to be a virgin oak for sure, and then there will be another 10 more, so total 12 different to make it a complete set of Zodiac series.
Yeah. And one thing I know a lot of fans of Paul John have been crying out for a long time was that kind of core range sherry casks, and you've obviously now brought 2 out, so do you want to tell us a little bit about them? I hope you've got 2 sat there.
Yeah. Well,
you haven't, have you?
I have, guys.
I was going to say, if not, I've got,
Oh, so we've got the Oloroso and we've got the PX. One of us is least organised.
Yeah. Now, I was going to say, if not, I managed to get on to a little shop, and I managed to get them as well. So I know I was lucky enough to try a little bit. What would it be? I think, did I review them was it February they're launched?
Yep. They came in March time, but I think I gave you the samples about February time.
Yeah, because I know as soon as I tried them, it was one of those where it had to be ordered there and then. And I remember you telling me that, you might not get it straight away. I was a bit gutted.
So we have got these 2 new releases, which are select cask, like the classic and the peated. So these 2 are adding to the select cask. Oloroso and the PX, they are 5 years in American oak and 2 years in Oloroso, and again 5 years in American oak and 2 years in the PX cask. It's at a 48% ABV. The biggest, a lot of guys do keep asking me, I mean, your other select cask is at 55 or 50 and above, and why do you have this at 48? Since we were releasing it for the global market and all over, and just to keep it at the same ABV, in India, it's difficult to sell alcohol which is above 50% ABV, and that's why classic and peated are only available in Goa as a state, and you can't sell that in Delhi and Bombay just because of the 55% ABV on it. That's the excise. That's how the excise works, and that's why we came out with 48. So we can easily sell this in the Indian market as well.
Mm. And one thing, you know, like you say, yes, it's 48%, but I don't think it really needed to be anymore. It's just so drinkable at that you don't need any more than 48. 48 is a very good number anyway. So
I love it at 48 myself, because I mean, for me, I think it just gives that if you go from brilliance edited and then try the Oloroso and the PX, and you can see that bit of a push given to that from 46, and it just gives more coming out at 48. 55 could be a bit too much. That's my personal point of view. I mean, I'm not a big sherry bomb fan in that way, but for me, this is enough. This is okay. I love this one. More sweeter could be something different for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I agree with that. I mean, I do personally love single casks at cask strength and things like that. But to me, at 48%, this one, you don't kind of, it's not one way you sort of then consider water or things like that. For me, it's just perfect to drink it as it is. And to me, you never get that alcohol burn on Paul John anyway. So.
No, and especially the two different ones, Oloroso and the PX going in, and especially with the tastings, I always pick up the Oloroso first and then end up with the PX. The Oloroso has got this more dryness to it, more of the nutty, dry fruits character on the Oloroso, and the PX gets more on the sweeter side. So at 48, I think that's the right ABV for it.
Yeah, and I think one thing where you just mentioned there, that nutty flavour, that's something I pick up throughout your whole range. I mean, would you put that down to, this is where we're going to get interested, would you put that down to the barley for the 6 row? Because obviously you're using 6 row barley rather than traditional 2 row. So do you think the nuttiness is coming from there?
I don't think so, personally, if you had to ask me. Because trying the new make from us, from Paul John, you get it more sweeter, softs on the character. I mean, I don't know if how many of you guys have tried the new make, which we sometimes carry with us at shows, but it's
guys have tried it.
Yeah, it's only at 63% ABV, and I find it's more of a soft, sweet, very light new make, and less, especially with the Oloroso, which is the nuttiness coming more over here. Which I mean, if you keep it next to classic and the Oloroso next to each other, there's a huge difference in both.
Yeah.
So it's similarly like you take the classic and you mature it for another 2 years in Oloroso cask. That's how you will end up with Oloroso in short. But that's I really think it's mainly because of the cask over here, Soren.
So I mean, I agree with you totally that obviously the Oloroso as a sherry anyway brings a lot of nuttiness into it. But you know, it's interesting to think to kind of hear that nuttiness in your opinion is coming from the cask, because obviously there are people out there that believe the cask isn't quite as influential as some things in the productions. So trying to be careful here where I say, but that's the interesting thing. That is it the faster maturation that's bringing that real nuttiness in? Is it the type of cask? You know, it's a very interesting kind of way to go into things to see where them flavors are coming from.
I mean, if you ask me, I am personally, I'm a believer of getting more flavors from the cask because I have seen the big differences. For example, you're talking about 1906 as a cask which you loved. if you keep it next to the 4611, for example, the latest one, they are completely different.
Yeah.
Being the same age, same warehouse, but it just comes out differently just because of different cask. So I personally think it's I like the flavors coming in from the wood, and that's what I will go with.
Yeah. So obviously, looking at that, one of the other misconceptions that we get with Paul John, and I read it all over the place, and it's amazing how many times you have to tell people that so many people still insist on that you import peated barley, and it's not that way.
It's so funny that even after sitting for 2 hours in the tasting session, and you end up the tasting session, and the guy will come to you and say, "Wow, well, I never knew you guys get the peated barley from Scotland." I'm like, well, seriously, I spent 2 hours with you telling you that we get the peat from Scotland, keeping the barley Indian.
Yeah.
So it's 100% local Indian barley, and we ship the peat over from Scotland, take it to India.
And so obviously when you ship the peat over, there are obviously 2 styles of peated whiskies that you do. So, you obviously bring the peat in from 2 different areas.
Yeah, we ship the peat from Islay and the Highlands.
Yeah.
I mean, and we use it differently as well. I mean, some whiskies we mix it. Bold is only Islay, so just to make a different style of whiskey.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think your distillery does so well, because you show that the different styles of peat, that it does offer a different flavor as well.
Yeah, at the same time, when we were launching, I mean, if you look at it, Bold was launched only in 2015, 2 years later after Brilliance and Edited. It's mainly because we came out with Brilliance as an entry-level easy whiskey, and then there was Edited for people who want to get into peated whiskies, lightly peated whiskey. I mean, launching it in India itself, there was consumers in the market. Yeah, I can see the Edited. There are consumers in the Indian market who have been drinking peated whiskey as well, but not heavy peated. So Edited was launched. And then there is Bold for people who love the peated whiskies, which is again not heavy peated, so that we can maintain the flavors still, like the fruity flavors coming from the Paul John range, and then you get the peat influence into it. And then you have your peated select cask, which is again a mix of both, but more of the Highland style and less on the Islay.
Yeah, and I know from recollection that if I remember rightly, you ppm to about 35, and is that off the still, or is that at barley stage?
Barley stage.
Yeah. So at 35, it's not a big ppm, but you still get all the flavors of that peatiness coming through in your whiskies. So it just proves you don't have to go to them extreme levels to get that flavor in there.
Yeah, I mean, the Bold, for example, should be something about 30 ppm, but by the time it's been bottled on the liquid, it will be something about around 20. It goes down, but it's 30 and 35 on the peated select cask.
And one question that's coming from Andy from Maltbox. So he's asking, have you tried other local influences for drying to get flavors into your barley, like McMira do with the juniper and things like that? Have you tried? I don't know whether he's meaning spices or things like that, but have you tried influencing in any way?
We have not tried anything locally in India, Andy, but yes, we are on the research of trying to see what we can use, because it's the same thing which I've been finding out myself. I keep getting this, like, have you tried something locally? No, but we are looking and working on it.
Yeah, and obviously, I don't know what the sort of governing rules are like in India, but have you tried any other styles of casks, so away from oak? Is it something you would look at?
We have not. Again, that comes to a point. I mean, for example, if you look at the history behind Indian whiskey, it goes in the 18th century when whiskey making started, and that is a point when people they used salwood to mature, and these are like huge vats, like 50 liters, and that's where it was. It was matured in it, and even today, a lot of companies use it, but we have not used any.
Mm. And one thing, have you considered going higher with the ppm then on any products? Sort of bringing out like an Optimal style or anything like that?
No. Well, again, mainly because if you look at the style that Michael does is to maintain the flavors and on the fruity flavors what you get in the rest of the Paul John range. We have not tried any. We kept it at 35 ppm is most probably because just to maintain the fruity and so that we don't get rid of the flavors of the Paul John signature style and don't let the peat overpower the whiskey.
Yeah. So slightly going backwards, but keeping it in line with this, you obviously brought Nirvana out, which is kind of now your entry-level whiskey, which has sort of pushed the brilliance in that up a little bit. And I'm assuming the Nirvana is kind of more aimed at the on-trade side, to get into pubs, things like this, to be a perfect cocktail. So is there any thought of bringing a peated version of that out then?
Yeah, so that's exactly how it started off. When we started, we thought of coming up with a peated and unpeated expression, but then we came out with the unpeated first. Right now, which is out in the market. It's not only for on-trade, but as I said, it's more of a stepping stone to the range. Sometimes you'll see a lot of people who don't want to spend the 40 pounds on a bottle, and then you can still start off trying the 30 on the Nirvana and then get into the range. Also for the on-trade, like cocktails and stuff, or supermarkets where you got that. It's a value for money whiskey. If you look at the pricing on the liquid, if you keep it that way, it's a value for money whiskey. It's doing very well as well in the markets.
Yeah, but I mean, I think I'm right in saying I haven't really checked the prices properly recently, but your Brilliance Edited and Bold are still sub £40, aren't they? So,
yeah.
To have kind of 4 expressions sub £40 is extremely good.
Yeah, at the same time, we have standardized the pricing now as well. So you will see the pricing of the Brilliance Edited Bold as one price in the markets, most of them now.
Yeah, and I think that is one thing that we always notice, to me, and it's very rare for people buying whiskey to say this, but to me, most of your expressions are still underpriced. Your select cask and your peated cask, to me, are way underpriced. And that's kind of why I keep stocking up on them at the moment, because you always have this worry they're going to jump.
Craig, we need to discuss this, my friend.
Yes. Warren, you need to keep your mouth shut, mate, if you want to keep the price down.
Let's talk about the pricing, Craig.
Everybody buy quick. We'll leave it a few weeks before we publish the video. But no, I know it's a rare thing for people to say that, but £55 for that select cask is, to me, still a steal. Coming out at 55.2, I believe, is it?
Yeah, on the classic,
yeah. We'll forget the peated one because nobody needs to buy that one. But it's a steal, and in a world where people are continuously complaining about the price of whiskey, there is no way you could argue at £55 generally for a bottle of select cask at 55.2% and a very small selection of cask to make each batch up, and absolutely superb whiskey.
The pricing, if you look at it, even the Oloroso and the PX are not, they're what, 70, 80?
Yeah, 75.
75 for the Oloroso, 80 for the PX.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, the pricing has always been very reasonable. If you look at the 1906, I mean, forget about this. 1906 has a single cask itself. You could get it for what, 70, 80 as well in the in places.
Yeah.
The prices have been, we kept it that way as well. I mean, Brilliance was at some point even at 35, at least now it's gone to 40.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good value for money range that you have, especially looking at the different styles that we have, like 5, 6 whiskeys. each are different expressions. So if you want something peated, you can pick up something at the same pricing as unpeated as well.
But this is kind of where we was earlier, that, you know, sub £40 for Brilliance, edited and bold, which come out at 46% ABV, non-chill filtered, natural colour.
Yeah.
And in theory, if we really want to push it, are the equivalent of at least 15-year-old Scotch for sub £40.
Yeah.
It's one of those where words don't kind of describe it. You know, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in because I'm just looking at the chat. Christopher, it's a bargain. Go for it.
What's Christopher asking? Has he found
someone's
something?
offering to sell him a 1906 for €90.
Yeah.
90 euros is yeah.
Okay. I was wondering. Guess it's not here. I can get advice not to buy whiskey anyway.
No, I think, Christopher, in this situation, over the last 2 months you have asked some stupid questions. This is by far the most stupid. Just buy it.
Yeah, but I'm sorry and I'm ashamed to admit that today I'm tasting Paul John for the first time with samples kindly sent by Wim. So I don't know Paul John a lot yet. And I have no idea what this cask 1906 is about. I've just seen you talk about it. I've seen that Brian has want to see most of you say it's a good one, but I have no idea what this cask is about. What is the wood, the age, or everything. I have absolutely no idea for now.
Just buy it.
Okay.
Just buy it. I mean,
I think a UK exclusive cask.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was extremely lucky. I think I picked my last two up for £68 a piece. It was a no-brainer when I got mine. And like I say, I think I've had 7 bottles, something like that. It's superb.
Yeah, but you have at least a case of everything, Soren, anyway.
No, it's not. It is one of those whiskies where it's very similar to the Select cask to me, that it's just a whiskey that always evolves in your glass, and it just brings pleasure every time you drink it. And that's the best thing I can say about it, that it just brings pleasure every time you drink it.
Okay. Guess I'm going to buy it right now.
Do it. But, so kind of going back to that, now we've sold you another bottle. So going back to the Nirvana, obviously, like we say, it's the entry level. Do you think, you've kind of already said that you are going to bring out a peated one, but could we see it evolving to maybe going to a sherry type thing, or will it just stay at the peated, unpeated, full stop?
With the entry levels, I think it will be just with the peated and unpeated, Soren.
Yeah.
Just to keep it simple, and as it's more about just an entry level one.
Yeah.
So at 40% ABV, that should be more about just keeping it that way, like easy ones.
And that one of the very interesting things that I've noticed recently with the Nirvana is, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, you did a tasting with the little whiskey shop. I think it was, I'm not sure if it was yourself or Craig that did it. And Craig, yeah. And one of the things that I noticed coming out of that, and it's not a disrespect to the others, but everybody was talking about the Nirvana afterwards. Everybody was impressed with the Nirvana. It wasn't that the others weren't very good. It was just that is exceptional for what it is.
Yeah, on the tasting, the general feedback was, you know, it was the first time a lot of those people had tried the Nirvana full stop. A few of those had actually tried Paul John before. But the general feedback from it was, you know, value for money. But actually, for a 40% whiskey, it felt like it gave so much more. And yeah, to be honest, it was nice to see that, you know, for an entry-level whiskey, we got such great feedback for it. I've done a lot of festivals over the past sort of 6-9 months. And you'll know, Soren, you've been there along with Shilton and Dave. You get a lot of people that come that they don't like whiskies. They're there because they're there with their partner. You get them to try the Nirvana, and I take it as a great compliment that I get. I could actually drink that.
Mm.
You know, they tried 3 or 4 different whiskies and said, no, it's not for me. They try the Nirvana and they come away with a compliment and I go, no, actually, I can drink that. That's nice.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of whiskey. It's great for introducing friends and family that maybe don't drink whiskey into the whiskey circle.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's one of the things that make it shine so much, is that it is such a very approachable whiskey that, you know, it just kind of appeals to everybody. It's out there. It's a perfect mixing whiskey. It's a perfect drinking whiskey on its own. It's one that you can sit down and not overanalyze, but it's also a whiskey that you can sit down and analyze at the same time.
The pricing itself on that is it's mainly, if you look at it, most of the markets, it started off in France actually, and that's how the French market came up, saying we want a whiskey for the supermarkets, which is at 40% ABV and not priced at about 30. And that's how we developed Nirvana and came out with it, and we said we'll do it globally. The initial thoughts were to make it only for exclusively for France, but then we came out saying we'll do it, release it worldwide. Again, it's if you look at the liquid itself, Soren, I mean, for guys who have tried it, it's for that pricing, for 30 quid, it's not, and just for 40, it's not like an easy sipping whiskey. There's so much going on over there. There's still fruitiness. You got this orangey, citrusy notes coming in as well. But it's for like a proper, I would say it's a summer drink as well. It's a proper summer whiskey. It's a nice, easy, fresh, perfect for this weather.
Yeah, and that's it, because I mean the packaging is superb. You know, it's one of those where I think Fiona's kind of just said she sent somebody a bottle to a friend, and it's one way you send it to a friend, and it looks more expensive than it is. It tastes more expensive than it is, and you get that little bit of a buzz when you receive it. I mean, if Craig says something,
so this Nirvana one, so it's quite a distinctive package compared to the rest of our flagship and select cast range.
And if can you get the bottle out, because I believe the bottle is totally different as well. So as in, is that So it's that dark bottle. Yeah.
So it's like the light green glass bottle, so it looks quite dark. Sorry, the light keeps shining off this, but yeah, so it stands out on the shelf.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It does look quite elegant at the same time. You know, it doesn't look as though it's meant to be cheap, and I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, it's, you know, even though it is an entry-level whiskey, the gateway whiskey, as I've seen Jamie say, you know, it still looks nice. It's nicely presented, so even sat on your shelf, it just looks and stands out. So yeah.
And so obviously with Paul John, and we all know we're not at the festivals anymore at the moment, but one thing that I did, obviously we've spoke about, and one thing that I notice with some companies as ambassadors, sometimes we're the last people to get to know about things. I know you kind of said to me, I think it was it just after Christmas or just before Christmas, that, you know, we've got something exciting. I can't tell you any more about it. And the one thing that I kind of did was go straight onto the website, and there's the information. How do you two cope with being told you're not allowed to tell us things, but then people either back at the distillery or the PR side are giving that information out?
Yeah, it can be a bit of a kick at times when I get told we're not, and Shilton said it, when we tell you and we try to build that hype, and then all of a sudden you get asked a question out of the blue where it's there, you know, and you find out they found the information off the website.
I mean, how do you find that, Shilton? Because you must get it quite a lot, that, you know, when's this coming out, or when's that coming out, and you're like trying to pretend that you don't know what they're on about, but for somehow people away from the industry know more about it than us sometimes.
I mean, for me, it is, I do know what is coming out. I only do not know when it is coming out.
I mean, because I think I remember going back to when the Oloroso cast first came out, and I know you kind of said to us, you'd given me and Craig a bit of a heads up saying there's something very exciting coming, you know, keep an eye on it. And I basically went back and looked at an interview with David. Is it David? Oh, it's totally gone out of my head. Michael. And he was talking about different casks and what they've been experimenting with. And I know what I kind of said to you one day, so when's this Oloroso coming out? And you kind of looked at me to say, how do you know that?
No, it's again, it's how it works. We have the cask until you speak to the person who is working at the distillery. That's how you get to know more about the secrets going on over there, and that's exactly how you figure out about it from Michael as well. For us, it is. I mean, I do know things, but I rather keep it to myself or before passing any wrong information out, and wait for the right information to be passed. For example, right now I do know that the next Zodiac series, we do know about the Christmas edition coming in and what's going into it. So we are open to share the information right now. So I will most of the time I will not just keep it to myself until I get a formal information so I can tell people about it.
Yeah. And so kind of talking of new products and things like that, and I know I'm pretty sure we can talk about it because I've seen a few things on social media and that, but you've now got, is it the XLP coming out soon, or is it already out?
This one.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not out yet. It's due to release later this year, so probably maybe September-ish time.
So just for confusion, obviously it's not a whiskey.
No, this is the first. Well, I'm waiting for it thing, but this is the first time we've done a XO brandy. So we're fetching it out. It's been launched in India, which it seems to have gone down really well. So we are fetching this out in the UK. Obviously, brandy's a small market. You know, it's been around a long time. Obviously, it used to be the drink everyone used to drink. But general feedback I've got's been really good. But then obviously I need to see how that translates later on in the year for us.
I mean, as somebody who doesn't drink brandy or cognac, the only thing I will say from a whiskey person's thing is that packaging is absolutely superb. Here we go. Marcus, do you want to just mute yourself, please?
Sorry about that.
It's okay. So yeah, you know, that packaging is absolutely superb. For some reason, we are stuck on that, so I'll go down there. Just change it back. So that packaging is absolutely superb, and I just think it's one of those that you brought the packaging around the other day, and I put it sort of just on one of my shelves, and it just looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I know Fee's asked me to hold it up again, so this is the packaging for it. And guys, Soren says he doesn't like brandy. I said, pour yourself a sample. That's some sample.
Come on, I didn't have that much. You had a bit.
No, I didn't. I've been trying it out with accounts and stuff. But no, you've said yourself you're not a big brandy drinker, but you tried it. We sat there and had a little sample, and you loved it. It is. I've drunk quite a lot of brandies over my time, but it is something that's quite special and unique. But hopefully I'll get you guys to try it at some point in the future.
I must just sort of point out though, Craig, it was purely business when we was drinking.
Yeah, no, it was a business meeting.
It's always business, Soren.
Yeah, I just want, you know, that, you know, I don't want people thinking I sit around drinking all the time. You know, I'm totally teetotal, as most people will tell you. I haven't got a clue about whiskey. I keep getting told that. So obviously trying to move on to brandy instead. But no, that packaging is perfect. But if you just hold it up again, Craig, because the thing, if you can open it up as well, because, yeah.
So this is the box.
Just open the box up though, because I think, you know, it's the whole thing that's perfect.
Yeah. So if I open the thing up, I'll just put the bottle back in for you. I'll try to. There we go. So there you go.
Oh.
But yeah, it's a really nice packaging. And like I said, sorry, try to make sure the light doesn't shine too much on it.
But no, you know, and that's the thing I think that is perfect with Paul John and John Distillers, that it is a very, you know, you can go different ways with things. It's not just purely producing whiskey within the company. You've got all sorts of things going on.
I mean, brandy has been a big thing for especially the south of India. If you look at Kerala and places like Pondicherry, brandy is something which sells, and we have been making brandy for some time now. It's not, I mean, we have come up with an XO, but we have been making brandy for the Indian market only before. Not the same liquid, but different liquid. There are many brands out there as well which do really well within the Indian market. So coming out with the brandy again was something not new for us. It was just because the only thing is that we had to make something which is more premium compared to the stuff what you get for the Indian market. And that's how we ended up with, we came up with the XO, so that we can, you know, just come out of India as well and talk about the Indian brandy. I mean, not many people do know about this as well, that we grow grapes in India. I mean, as a company, we also have premium wines selling in India. In Maharashtra, Nasik, for example, this is where the grapes are grown. And Sula is a company which is based in the same place, and we buy the grapes from them and we make the wines for the Indian market. Like Big Banyan is the name of the brand. We have Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and we have these grapes grown in India itself. So it wasn't something like very new for us into coming into that line.
So in theory then, could we see, because I'm assuming the cask that you've got here with the Oloroso and PX, it's not anything, say like the brandy that you've made yourselves. Could we in the future maybe see the cask that you've used for the brandy to actually mature your whiskey?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Brilliant. So one last thing, because I'm conscious of how long the recording's going on, but obviously one big change over the last few years is the distillery opening the visitor centre. So do you want to sort of finish off by just telling us a little bit about the experience and the visitor centre now at the distillery?
Yeah, so visitor center for us, if you look at the images itself, we have built it up in a very old style, like a Portuguese style houses. If you just go up and Google and see any old houses in Goa, they are more of a Portuguese style of the houses that was built. So we built up the visitor center itself in the similar design, and it got that same feel of it. From the time we have opened up the visitor center, we have been busy with it, to be honest with you. I mean, there are people traveling across, some of them within India, from Bombay, from Delhi, or anybody who's traveling as well. I mean, I get so many text messages saying, I'm visiting Goa. I'm visiting Goa sometime, like, can I visit the distillery? So we have opened it up. It's doing very well. We have got a team dedicated who's at the distillery to take you around, to do tours. So we do the tours and it's open for all.
Yeah. One question that's just come in: Would you ever do anything in conjunction? I'm presuming it's pronounced with Fenny as a spirit drink then.
She's been watching my Instagram, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've had Fenny over there, which
yes.
is why I'm asking. So yeah, nothing to do with your Instagram.
No, okay. No, because not many people know about this. So it's something which is, if someone says, do you want everybody to try one drink, then I would say try the Fenny. It's very different, guys, and it's made from the cashew apple. So it's distilled the thing is, Fenny is not matured. So, maybe you could experiment with the cask and then have the Fenny in there and then take it off, and just to get that influence in it. Yes, I would love to do it myself. If I get a chance, and I will love to do that and try and see how it works. I was just having something last night, which is a coconut fini, and re-distilled with some roots in it. It's like just like how you do a gin, and just one botanical infused. So it's something which I was trying last night as well, which I got back with me from India. But yeah, I would love to see a fini myself.
Brilliant. So before we stop the recording, has anybody got any questions while we're recording, or do you all want to ask it off recording? No, they're always quiet while we're recording. So, right,
Shilton, I've got a question actually. Obviously, there's with the temperature and with the speed of maturation, you kind of, as you rightly pointed out, things get very woody very quickly. Have you guys explored, maybe trying to do like sort of deeper underground maturation, or even maturing? Just somewhere that's a lot colder to sort of see what happens to the spirit over time.
Yeah, so it's I've come across this many times. A lot of people saying, why don't you try to mature your whiskey somewhere up north of India, for example, which is more colder, and just to see how it happens, how it works. The thing for us is at the moment we are doing okay, so we're doing good with whatever results we're getting. Moving it out of Goa, for example, the liquid we will end up paying double the tax just to take it out of Goa.
Yeah.
So you're doubling the tax to go out of India, and then you may be ending up paying tax again to bring it back for the bottling. So
yeah.
That's definitely not worth doing it. That is one reason. But at the same time, Edward, we are I was talking about Feni. In a similar way, there are many things which are happening. And there is a brewery in Goa as well, whom we are working closely with to work on some projects. There were in Mysore, for example, in Karnataka, it's known for coffee plantations. So there is a coffee producer, for example, who took a cask from us, an empty cask, to get coffee beans like whiskey infused and use it, and then we get it back. So there are a lot of things that we are doing, but taking liquid out of Goa is something which is not worth doing it at all.
So with your underground warehousing anyway, can you bring the temperatures down in there, or is it just the fact it's underground and it's a natural 23 degrees?
It's a natural 23 degrees.
Yeah.
I know Fee's asked for the price for the brandy. Once I've got a confirmation, I'll message you, Fee, but we're just working on details.
The pricing
around that £100 mark, I think.
The pricing on the EXO will be something around 100. I don't think it's more than 100 actually.
Wow.
Any more questions before we stop the recording? You all are happy to go off the record now? Yeah. Right, so thank you very much, Shilton. We know you're very busy with your stardom on Instagram and that, so we obviously don't want to keep you too long from your main job. And thanks to Craig as well. We're going to carry on off the record if you're both happy to stay. But thanks very much for giving us the time and talking a little bit more about Paul John.
Thank you so much, guys.
Cheers, guys.
All right.